And we're joined by Mr. Myke Gray. How you doing, Mike, mate?
I'm very well, Lee. Total pleasure to be here, brother. Thank you very much.
No, pleasure's all mine. Pleasure's all mine, mate. So obviously you recently released the latest single, California, and the last single to be released from the Shades of Grey album. For those listeners of us who may have not caught the project yet, did you want to tell them how the project came to be? This particular one, obviously you've had an extensive career, but how this particular Shades of Grey project came to happen.
I mean, it's a very strange way to do a record. I mean, literally, I was waiting around for musicians to get their shit together, and I get bored very, very quickly, and I always like to be creating and making music. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna make my own song. I've always had conflict with singers over the years. You know, it's always been a butting of heads with every singer I've ever worked with. And I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it myself. I just don't want to put up with any more of that nonsense. And so I recorded I Get Up, which was in, December of 2019,
Wow.
and I just recorded one song, and with the intention of putting it out, thinking that it would be swept under the carpet, but it was just to fulfill my need to create some music.
Of course.
So I put it out, and I didn't want anyone to know that I was singing on it. So in the video, I created these sort of characters, thinking that I would be able to disguise myself and no one would know that it was me. And put it out and made this video. And to my huge surprise, it got picked up by Planet Rock and it got playlisted. And all of a sudden, no one was really, I thought everyone was going to be like slagging it off, saying what terrible vocals it was. But to my huge surprise, it seemed to get a lot of attention, and a huge amount of DJs started playing it. And so I was just kind of like, well, maybe there's a project here. So I only had that one song and that one video. And then I was like, okay. And then lockdown came, and it was literally like, well, I'll just make a whole album. And I did it slightly different to most bands. Most bands go in and record like all the drums at once and they do all the songs. But I was doing it one track at a time. And as I did each track, I released it to radio to keep the project going and to keep it interested. And the other thing about it is that, I've been a songwriter for many years now. Like most of the bands that I've been in, I've always been the songwriter. And getting a song over the finishing line is actually the hardest part. There's many more songs that have been written that have ever been recorded, because most people give up halfway through or they can't quite get it. And it's quite easy to get a song halfway there, but getting it the other half, where you've got all the backing vocals and all the arrangements,
finishing touches that bring it and
all of that stuff, that's the hard stuff. And it's also the stuff that gets done the least, because songs don't get finished. And so over the years, I've just kind of learned, get a song finished, and then when you move on to the next one, you'll get more knowledge and have more experience of finishing songs. And so that was the reason I've done it like that. And another reason I did it is that you get instant feedback of what's working. Often when I've released albums in the past, you release 10 songs or 12 songs and you don't actually know what the best ones are.
No, until you put it out.
Yeah, but here I've been getting feedback on every single song, and certain songs got more feedback than the others. And it kind of created a path to how the rest of the album should go. So it's been an interesting learning curve for me. And obviously it's the first album I've ever done where I'm recording all of the vocals.
Yeah. So because you record it in that way, did you find that the actual songwriting process that you were going through changed compared to your previous albums then?
Yeah, very, very much so. Normally I write a lot. And so I remember when I was doing the Red, White and Blues album, I'd actually written 110 songs.
Wow.
And which is a lot of songs, and Matty Alfonsetti, who was the singer of Red, White and Blues, he flew over to my studio, and in one weekend, we went through all 110 songs. It was a very quick process, which was just kind of like, is this any good? And Matty would sing like the verse, bridge, chorus, and he'd be like, nah, yeah, maybe that one. And we whittled 110 songs down to about 30. And then we went into finer detail and we whittled it down to about 16. And I think eventually 14 made it onto the album. You know, so normally how I've always written is write loads, and then the singer will pick out the ones that he likes. Yeah, you know, because ultimately you're writing for a singer. You know, a singer will tell you very quickly if they don't like something. You know, so I've always historically written a lot, and then you pick out the ones that they sort of, which they gravitate towards. Whereas in this project, because I was writing for myself, I didn't have to worry about that because I knew that I liked it, you know, or I knew that it was working for my voice. Otherwise, it would never have been written in the first place. And so it was very much, I didn't have to write 50 songs. I knew that each song was something that I related to. Then it became just finishing into a degree, you know, where, you know, I tried to write that each song has a story. You know, I approach songwriting like a movie. You know, it's got to have a beginning and end and a big finish, and it's got to emotionally connect. And if I'm not emotionally connecting to it, how can I expect anyone else to? So that's always been my gauge for whether something is working. When I'm writing for Neville or I was writing for Matty, it's got to be that they emotionally connect to it. And so you start to write for somebody else. So from this regard, it was the easiest album for me to write, but it was the one that took the most amount of time because I wanted it to be the best album I've ever done.
No, that makes sense. Obviously, you say you did all the vocals and stuff on it. Did you do all the instrumentation as well? Because I know you've got a great band who likes Colin on bass and stuff.
No, I did it all. I mean, literally, I played every instrument with the exception of the backing vocals. Then, I mean, that was a lot of it's me, but I also, Pete Newdeck, who mixed the album, he did a lot of the backing vocals. Daniel Byrne from Revival Black.
I love Daniel. He's got such a great voice, and he's such a nice guy as well.
Both, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head. Not only is he a great singer, he's also a lovely guy. And when I talk about the difficulty I have with singers, I don't include Daniel, because Daniel is one of the sweetest, nicest human beings on this planet. And he's actually a dream to work with. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, we actually did the live stream gig of Daniel, and his vocals is just insane. Like one of the last gigs I went to before Winter's End, before lockdown, sorry, was Winter's End Festival, playing at Winter's End, and I think Revival Black on middle of the day on the Friday. But to be honest, they just blew everyone out of the water. It's just
they're a great band. They're a great band, and he's just phenomenal. I love Daniel. I mean, he's probably the nicest musician I've ever met and that's in like 35 years of dealing with musicians. He's absolutely adorable.
It is. To go back to the album, though, you're saying obviously like, I had a lot of fan involvement with it. Like you say, you're getting the instant feedback and all that, and then you're writing. Obviously, anyone who's ordered the pre-orders and stuff, they're getting their name, as it were, as a thank you, and the credits and stuff, which I thought was a really cool thing to do.
I mean, the fans throughout my career have been unbelievable. You know, they've been with me through Jagged Edge. They were with me with Skin, Red, White and Blues, Skin again, and through my instrumental stuff. I'm truly blessed that I've had that support. You know, if this is the last album I ever make, I wanted it to be for the fans. And like you say, the pre-orders have been unbelievable. We're close to 900 pre-orders now. Wow. You know, which means there's only like 100 copies left. And the album hasn't even been released yet. So it has been overwhelming. And through the 16 months, I've received so much support online, personal messages. I mean, to have so many DJs buy the album. I mean, for the last 4 days, I've been putting CDs into envelopes. I'm like, these guys are DJs. They're like buying it. And it's so humbling to know that, you know, it's phenomenal, you know, and I'm dedicating 16 months of my life to this record to make it as good as I possibly can. And it's overwhelming, the support that I've been given, you know, and sometimes it nearly moves me to tears, you know, because it's just phenomenal, just breathtaking.
Yeah. I think the thing is, I mean, certainly from my point of view, anyway, I mean, my show has always just been, you know, music that I love and artists that I want to play. Simple as that. I've always treated my radio show like a lot of guys that I know who also have their own shows. treat it as, you know, 2 hours of someone coming into my front room and I'm going, mate, you need to listen to this. That's all it ever is. So I don't think any, you know, DJ worth their right is ever going to complain about having to, you know, most DJs at the end of the day are just rock fans. So they're not going to put any quarrel into, like, you know, pre-ordering albums of bands and artists that they love.
The thing is, I have such a strong connection to radio. You know, I know, like, I'm 53 and I've gone through all the various mediums. But when I was a kid, you know, the Friday Night Rock Show with Tommy Vance, this was like the highlight of my week. And I literally used to sit on the floor with my guitar, trying to learn the song before it got to the end. You know, and so it was like, because I didn't have, I didn't have a cassette player or anything like that. I just used to listen to the radio, and I used to sit there and I was trying to work out the song, why it was coming out, you know, and this went on for many years, you know. So my connection to radio is like, when I was that young, my dream was to have my song played on the radio more than anything else. You know, it was before concerts. It was like, if I could only have my song on the radio. You know, so for me, it's such a huge deal, you know, to have you guys feature one of my songs on your show. It's almost like the ultimate for me. It's like the dream.
I guess you get asked this a lot, but as you say, you've been playing guitar a long time, man, and writing for like 30+ years. Who was the artist that made you pick it up in the first place, though? Who was the guy that you saw and went, I want to be like him? I mean,
I've told this story many times, so a lot of people must be sick of it. But for me, you know, I first discovered music with punk, with the Sex Pistols and the Damned, you know, because that was what everyone was kind of listening to. And then someone brought round a box of cassettes. I mean, it's a long story to the box of cassettes. It was actually brought over by someone who stabbed someone to death in a car park. And it's a long story, maybe not for now. But the end of it is that there was this box of cassettes. There was maybe like 40 cassettes in it. And me being the very obsessional person that I am, I just worked through this box of cassettes, listening to every one. And it was maybe Pink Floyd or maybe Genesis, all bands I'd never heard of. And like, oh yeah, okay, move on to the next one. And eventually I got to this one cassette, which had 2 band names on it. And for some reason, I thought they were European bands, because on side 1 was Montrose and on side 2 was Van Halen. And the second I put in the Van Halen cassette, it's like the sky is opened. It's like, I mean, I've said this so many times, is my life changed. As soon as I heard Van Halen 1, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And it was, I must have listened to that album every single day for 2 to 3 years. Just listening to it. It was like, it was everything that I wanted out of life, was this album. Yeah. And so then I sort of become very, very serious about guitar playing. And I'm very lucky to go to the Monsters of Rock Festival in 1984. And I met Eddie Van Halen, you know, someone who I knew was working with him. And literally like half an hour before he goes on stage, you know, I'm shaking his hand and like I'm listening to him warming up with Neil Schon. I'm standing outside their dressing room listening to Eddie Van Halen and Neil Schon just trade licks. And I'm like losing my mind, because I'm 16 years of age and I've been listening to this man's music, and I'm just meeting him and I'm listening to him play. And so this sense of like euphoria. And then it was like, okay, they're going on stage. And you've been to download. So I'm running through like 70,000, 80,000 people and managed, and I'm tiny, like 16 years of age, standing surrounded by all of their stuff. And they come on and they open with Unchained, you know, and this riff just comes through the Monsters of Rock PA. Yeah. And I'm like, it's literally like God is talking to you. And I remember very, very clearly standing there just going, I'm not stopping until I've played this festival. Yeah. This is it. Every day of my life from that moment onwards was a drive to play at Monsters of Rock. And everything related to Jagged Edge and Skin and everything, it was like, it's because I want to play at Monsters of Rock, you know, and that was like the driving force of my life. And then 10 years later, I played with Van Halen, supporting Bon Jovi. It's Bon Jovi, Van Halen, Ugly Kid Joe, and Skin. You know, so it was like my entire dream as a kid was fulfilled. So in answer to your question, it's like, who was the person? It was Eddie Van Halen, brother. He was my God, and I cried my eyes out when he died. I sobbed like a baby. The influence that this man had on my life, I can't put into words. He changed my life.
Yeah. I mean, Eddie was just one of those players, man. Like, he just changed how everyone even looked at the instrument, even non-guitarists. You know, he completely. When I found out he died, I was busy writing like notes for the radio show that week, like sorting out who I was going to play and stuff. And I was literally got about halfway through it, and then the news came through about Eddie, and I was just like, you know, that gets scrapped, and I'm just going to have a little tribute show to Eddie because he was so influential that you couldn't not.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's the best ever, and I just can't see how anyone could ever be better. You know, is there something just magical about his playing, magical about his riffs, magical the way he looked. Just everything about him was a gift to mankind. And I just can't imagine what music would be without the entity of Eddie Van Halen. I mean,
you wouldn't have the music. The rock wouldn't be how it is now without, you know.
My God, the reach of his influence is, you know, there's only Jimi Hendrix that you can. It's Jimi Hendrix and there's Eddie Van Halen. You know, that if you're talking about the two, that's, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of guitar players, but if you're going to pick two,
I sent without doubt.
You know, and I don't think too many real guitar players would argue. You know,
I don't think they would. I don't think many people would argue with that. You've had quite a, like, obviously, say you're saying that, you know, playing Monsters of Rock and Donington was your goal after that, but you've had quite a rich history playing with Donington over the years. I mean, last time I saw you live was at Download 2019 when you guys were playing on the Sunday, was it?
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky. You know, I think I've played there 10 times now. You know, so I'm very lucky. I played there Skin, Red, White and Blues. I played there under my own name. I played there with Kim Jennett, and, you know, we did loads of acoustic stuff. Yeah, I've been blessed, really, really blessed. You know, but it's also when you focus so hard on something, you know, you make it happen, right? You know, we both come from martial art backgrounds. Yeah. I'm sure our role models are the same. Floyd Mayweather, Michael Jordan. Yeah. You know, these aren't guys that sit down and wait for things to come to them. Jean-Claude, you know, it's like we go out and we make it happen. Yeah. You know, so I had a dream to play Download, and only one person was going to make it happen. You know, so, you know, that's the mentality.
No, I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you on that. So on the lead up to the album, though, are you doing any other? Because like I say, you did that live stream show. Are you doing any other stream gigs? Have you got anything lined up?
Well, I mean, literally because this album just took so much of my time, you know, and I'm very much someone, I don't like to do a lot of things. I like to focus on certain things and give it 100%. I'm not someone who spins lots of plates. It's kind of like, no, I'm doing this. No, I'm doing this. So my focus was the album. Obviously, we've got fingers crossed that Stonedead is coming up, and to play guitar again, because when you're doing an album where you're doing all the vocals and you're doing all the bass and you're writing it and the guitar, you have to constantly shift from one thing to another.
Of course.
And so there was periods of time when I wasn't playing guitar for maybe 3 or 4 weeks because I was just focusing on vocals and backing vocals, you know. But when you're going out on tour to be the guitar player, then you lock in, and I'll just be playing guitar for 8 to 10 hours a day, you know, just focusing on and getting to be as competent as I was like 2 or 3 years ago, because over the course of making the album, your playing deteriorates. And so now my focus will be just on guitar playing and getting my band together to bring, you know, to play special shows at Download, you know, and hopefully a few other things will pop up.
That's cool, man. You're saying about obviously returning to live music, and the band that you go with you is, Is it the same band as you had before with Colin, like Colin on bass and everyone, or?
I hope so, unless they've changed their mind. You know, I think I've worked with about 20 musicians in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, everyone's got multiple projects going on, and sometimes it isn't your choice that someone has to leave.
No, of course.
And so hopefully it will be exactly the same band that was at the KK Steel Mill thing that we did for Stonedead. That's the plan. They tell me it is, you know.
That was a hell of a feature, and I've got to say, I know Neil wanted me to say hello to
Neil Maynard,
mate. Yeah.
He's a top man. He's you know, I consider Neil a very good friend. I mean, to be honest with you, he's the reason why I'm playing Stonedead. It was literally we met on Facebook, and we just became friends on Facebook, and then he sort of reached out and sort of said, you know, would you like to do it? And I said, yeah, for you, brother. No, you know, of course. You know, so my appearance at Stonedead is literally because of my relationship with Neil.
Oh, Neil's good man. Like I say, it's been, and obviously I'm working alongside him, part of the production team, so it's been an honour to get to know Neil and everyone involved the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously, because of the rollover from last year, we were just so desperate to play again, you know, and you know, it's just to do the best show possible. You know, it was such a disappointment last year, so we wanted to, you know, we wanted to be the best ever, you know, and obviously we want to be the best band on the day.
Of course, like you say, it's that fighting spirit, mate.
You know, if you're not going, you know, if you're not playing to win, don't play.
So have you got any other live shows since sort of planned up? Did you say, or?
Yeah, we're playing Rock and Blues Custom.
Oh yeah, cool.
Which is like, maybe I think it's about 2 weeks before Stonedead, and then we're locked in to play Planet Rockstock later on in the year. But to be honest with you, I wanted to see how the COVID thing was sort of progressing. I want to play gigs how I used to play gigs. You know, I don't want to play gigs with people spread out wearing masks. I want to play gigs how we used to play gigs. You know, because I only give 100%, and I'm used to audiences giving 100%. And if I see an audience having to hold back, I know that it's going to affect me.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, to me, a band and an audience is a symbiotic relationship. You know, it's literally an exchange of energy. If we go on stage and we transmit our energy, the energy comes back to us. And then we take it to another level, and then the audience take it to another level. You know, so the entire concept of doing a gig where you're holding back, you know, or you're not giving everything, that's just so alien to me. I would rather wait to know that I can give 100%.
You want to play it, yeah. That's the thing. Like, I know we talked about briefly about stream stuff, and there's been cool ones like the one thing you record with Stonedead, the footage for that was fantastic. That was cool to see, but there is nothing that will replace being in the same room down the front in a venue, just like you say, with that energy going back and forth. You're never going to replace it. It's
the foundation of what it's all built upon. If you think about the history of music, that is the foundation. You had a musician playing in a bar or on the side of a street or wherever, and people was right there. Everything else is an extension from that. We must never lose sight that that is the foundation. That's where the real emotional connection is made. You know, and it's also the place where a song goes to its highest level. The biggest example I can give to that is "Look But Don't Touch," which was a Skin song. You know, when we wrote that song, we didn't realize it was as good as it was. You know, and literally we were working with Bruce Dickinson at the time for Comic Relief, and Bruce was in the room while we were running through our set. And when we played "Look But Don't Touch," he went, "That's your best song." And we were like, "Is it?" And he said, "That's your best one." He said, "That should be your first single." And we're like, "Oh, all right, okay." And it did become our first single. And then when we played it on tour, it was the song that really connected to the audience. And that song has morphed into something beyond what it was on the record. When we started to play that song live, the audience knew that was when they were going to join in the most. Yeah. And so that's what I mean about, that's when the song is taken to its highest level. only when an audience is physically participating with a song do you really get, you take it to a
Magical moments, like you say, about having it live, though, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. You know,
first gig I went to, my dad took me to see Aerosmith at Wembley when I was 11 on their Nine Lives tour.
wow.
I remember just like you were on about like seeing Eddie Van Halen at Donny, and for me it was Aerosmith at Wembley. That was the moment that changed me. You know, I walked in, this little shy 11-year-old kid who quite liked his dad's records, and then sort of walked out going, "When can I get the tattoo that you've got, Dad?" And you know.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back on, I mean, when I'd heard Unchained by Van Halen, you know, but when you're standing there and it's like they're playing to you.
Yeah.
It's you. They're playing to you, you know, and it's just a very different thing than listening to a record. You've now gone to a different place because
it's on another level, isn't it?
It takes it to another level. I remember seeing AC/DC, and I remember seeing them and thinking it was the best concert I'd ever seen. And then the next 4 songs were Highway to Hell, Whole Lot of Rosie, Let There Be Rock, and For Those About to Rock. And before that, I thought it was the best concert I'd ever seen. You know, my mind was blown by what happened afterwards, you know. And I always say AC/DC is my favorite band. Van Halen and AC/DC. This is never, you can't beat them. That's, you know, and that's because of what happened at these concerts.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I'm with you because, like I was saying, the main support to Aerosmith was Lenny Kravitz, and he was fantastic, and he sort of really kicked it up a gear from the other supports. Not the other supports went great, but he took it like on another level, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at my dad and going, "Well, Aerosmith are going to have to do something really special here to, you know, beat that support, or like match it, let alone beat it, Dad." And you know, I was just an 11-year-old naive kid, and I just remember my dad looking at me going, "Don't worry, mate, just watch." And then they came on and just blew my mind.
Someone told me a story once who was Thin Lizzy's tour manager, and they were doing a tour. This was the lineup with Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham, and they were supporting ZZ Top.
Yeah.
In Texas, and literally, Thin Lizzy went on, and Brian Robertson apparently walked off the stage and said to Billy Gibbons, "Follow that," and Billy Gibbons basically replied, "Watch this, son."
Sounds like Billy.
And there is a huge amount of competition within bands. Anyone who tells you differently, they're not telling you the truth. You know, every band wants to be the best band.
Of course it does. Like you say, it's that natural thing we were talking about earlier. It's that fighting spirit. Everyone wants to. Yeah. No one's going to go out and go, right, oh, okay, we're not as good as them. Every band, you know, it's your baby. It's you're going out there to shine and prove a point. So
I've never walked out onto a stage without the intention of trying to be the best band.
No, of course. So what else have you got lined up for the rest of the year? Have you got any plans for the remainder of the year other than obviously pushing the album? Or?
A big one is my girlfriend lives in Florida. Yes. And I've seen my girlfriend for exactly 4 weeks in 16 months.
Wow.
So as soon as I get these CDs posted out to the fans, my intention is to go over to the US and spend time with my girlfriend before I come back and prepare for Stonedead. And then as soon as Stonedead is done, I'll be getting on the plane again, going to spend some more time with my girlfriend.
Don't blame me. You got to catch up at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
4
weeks.
So
that's my plan for 2021.
Don't blame me. It's got to be hard not seeing her for all that time, mate.
It's been tough, and if I didn't have the album, I probably would have lost my mind. So making the album has kept me sane through this time, and you know, but luckily we've stayed strong through it all, and just about to get stronger.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So at the beginning of the interview, I'm going to play California, being the last single that you released from the album. But at the end of the interview, what song do you want us to play?
Well, I mean, when I was writing the album, the one I initially wrote this song thinking I would put it last on the album, thinking this is how I'll close the album. And I'm very lucky that I've got some friends in the music industry whose opinions I really trust.
Yeah.
And I sent it to Andy Copping, who's executive producer on the album.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why Andy's executive producer is because whenever I send him everything, and I just basically go to him, is this any good? Or, you know, is this cool? Is this artwork any good? And so I've been very lucky that Andy's been an influence in my life for 20 years. And so I sent him this song, and he went, "That's the best song. That's got to be like the opening track." So it isn't the opening track, but it did move from the last song on the album to the second song on the album.
Nearly got that.
The song is "This Is How We Rock and Roll."
Oh, that's one of my favorites of the ones you've sent me, actually.
Yeah, so that's actually my favorite song on the album, and yeah, so if you can, that would be my choice.
Oh man, we'll definitely go with that. Mike, thanks for your time, man. It's been great chatting to you.
Total pleasure, brother, and you know, great to speak to you. Thank you so much for all your support.
Anytime, man. Anytime. It's an open invitation, dude. Anything you got.
I can't wait to meet you at Stonedead.
No, it's going to be good to meet you properly, mate. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for this. It's been cool.
All right, brother. You take care. Let me know if you need anything else.
That's great. Cheers, buddy.
All right. You take care.
See you, man. Bye, mate.
Bye-bye.